Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this haul is from August and September, and I read quite a bit of what I'll be showing. So this is a combination of haul and reading log. So let's get into it. Thank you to the Yen Press team for consistently sending out manga for me to check out. Most of the time it's manga, sometimes there's manhwa from Ice Press, sometimes even a light novel. I did take a look at the packaging slip, so I have an idea of what's in here. So let's get into unboxing. I will say that not everything I'm sent is catered to what I'm specifically interested in reading. So first is the Dark History of the Reincarnated Villainess, a short story collection one-shot by Akihiro Toka. It looks like it has 5 short stories centering around Konoha Sato, who writes self-indulgent fantasy romance fanfics and is the villainess rather than the heroine of her own story that she wrote in middle school. Seems she has to avoid all these traps that she set up herself, so I wonder how clever she'll end up being as a character and what these warning flags are all about. Next is Strategic Lovers by Amido Senshoku. I think this is still ongoing and has an explicit content warning. It follows Kota Higashiyama, who is the estranged son of a wealthy corporate founder and his mistress. He's next in line to become the next chairman, but is confronted by 5 women who are fighting to be his lover, but they have ulterior motives. I'm not really a fan of harem stories, so not sure how I'll feel about this. Next is the Hachioji Specialty Tengu's Love Volume 1 by Tomo Nanao. I did read this already, and it's about Kotaro who finds himself at the whims of a Tengu hime as she claims to be his bride. Because she's a winged spirit that doesn't interact with the modern world, Hime becomes super enamored with integrating herself into Kotaro's life. And even though it seems like an abrupt relationship, there are childhood memories that Kotaro has forgotten that involve Hime, and she's determined to stick around until he remembers, which I'm assuming he will eventually. The art is cute, and the story felt decent, but I am starting to not fall in love with every quick romance story that I read, and this was no exception because it can feel forced and overbearing at times. I'm in no hurry to continue this, so it didn't hook me, but I still enjoyed what I read. Next is Hell is Dark with No Flowers, a light novel by Yoru Michio. It's a fantasy horror mystery centering around Seiji Tono, who can see monsters, and meets a boy, Shiroshi Saijo, who ultimately takes Seiji into his mansion as his assistant, where he hands over yokai-possessed sinners to hell in exchange for room and board. This is giving me Phantom Tales of the Night kind of vibes. There is a manga adaptation too that looks to be complete at 10 volumes. Another light novel is My First Love's Kiss by Hitoma Iruma, which is complete at 3 volumes. It's a cohabitation story between Takasora and Umi when Umi and her mother temporarily move into Takasora's family's apartment. They don't quite hit it off, but slowly but surely, curiosity gets the better of Takasora. I do want to get into more GL series, so this one sounds interesting. And last in this box is In Another World, My Sister Stole My Name by Nikrome. I read this volume, and surprisingly, it's the one that I enjoyed the most, considering I tend to think the beginnings of most isekais feel pointless. So Ichika is friends with a boy named Cecile, who lives in another world, but they connect through a mirror. One day, Ichika's older sister Karen disappears. A year later, Ichika is suddenly pulled into the mirror as well, only to find that her sister is parading around under Ichika's name and is also engaged to Cecile. I will say that I think Ichika takes all of this too lightly because I would be so confused and kind of angry, but I'm here for the drama, like to see how the sister will be dealt with for doing what she's doing, and Ichika is portrayed as a very capable character too. Plus, besides Cecile, there's another male character of interest that I wonder how he'll play into what I'm guessing could be a love triangle. Yen Press sent another box. Thank you very much to the team for more things to add to my TBR. So first is a light novel, Victoria of Many Faces by Siu. It's a fantasy story following Chloe, who tries to restart her life as Victoria, an ordinary citizen in a neighboring kingdom, to get away from her previous life as a spy. However, it all catches up to her in the sense that her skills and strength become useful when trouble closes in on her in her new life. It says this is a fantasy, so I'm not sure if there are powers involved in here or what kind of problems she faces, so we shall see. Next is Riviere and the Land of Prayer, a Wandering Witch side story volume 1 by Neriyume. It's completed at 3 volumes. In this world, prayers have become curses, so Maki Malia and Riviere are the ones that deal with the dangerous things born from those prayers. Looks like this is a spin-off of the manga centering around Elena. I've never watched or read Wandering Witch and only know about Elena from her scale figures, and yet here I am with the spin-off. Next is the manhwa Finding Camellia by Jin Soye and was originally published digitally on Manta Comics. It has the cross-dressing trope where Camellia was forced to become Camellia's Bale after being taken in by a wealthy noblewoman. But ever since then, it's been her struggle to reclaim her life as Camellia. I feel like I came across this series at some point, but didn't get far because Camellia's character does look familiar. I'm curious to see how the romance plays out as well. Moving on to Springstorm and Monster by Mitsubachi Miyuki, the same mangaka as Cheeky Brat. I was a fan of Cheeky Brat a long time ago, but it's not really a series that stuck with me beyond reading it once. And so I believe this is the mangaka's newest series, which I was already hesitant about checking out because it is a stepbrother-stepsister relationship. Like, yes, I've read and watched Marmalade Boy a long time ago too, and I liked it at the time, but I'm lukewarm about it now. And I'm kind of getting past a lot of the high school romances that don't have much of a trope or plot besides them getting together, simply because I've read so many of those, and if I am reading any now, there's something special about them, at least in my opinion. I'll still read this because I'm curious how I'll feel about it. Next is Pink and Habanero by Mika Satonaka. This kind of sounds like an enemies to lovers story maybe. So Mugi is not impressed by Kei's rude attitude, especially towards girls, and Kei couldn't care less about girls. But seems Mugi discovered a secret behind Kei's part-time job. I wonder what it is, although the summary mentions something about being paid to please princesses. So I wonder if this is like a maid-sama situation where he works at a cafe. See, okay, this I'm interested in reading to see if the humor will click with me. Next is the 86 Alter Light Novel Volume 1 by Asato Asato. This volume contains various short stories previously uncollected or unpublished and seems like they're moments between battles. Maybe this has more lighthearted instances of peace and happiness away from the constant barrage of death and destruction. I don't know if I should continue hoping for a season 2 of the anime, but it seems we're at least getting more of the light novels released here, which is great. This looks like another light novel adaptation based on the title. From Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman, my hotshot disciples are all grown up now and they won't leave me alone. That was a mouthful. So Beryl Gardenon dreamed of being a master swordsman. He gets an invitation by a former pupil to be a special instructor at the capital and reunites with some of his former students. Actually, I literally just restated the title, but with different words, but that's basically the plot. This super thick volume is The Magical Girl and the Evil Lieutenant Used to Be Archenemies by Koko Fujiwara, who had sadly passed away in 2015. This is a total of 3 volumes and self-contained in this 3-in-1 omnibus. It follows Mira, who is the villainous lieutenant to the evil king. In comes Byakuya, who stands up against Mira's group, but their encounter unexpectedly becomes love at first sight. I know her other series, Inuboku, was pretty popular, even though I personally never read or watched it, but I'm curious to see the dynamic between these 2 main characters. And last in this box is a light novel, Even a Replica Can Fall in Love by Haruna Don. This premise sounds really interesting. It's like a split person where the replica takes the place of Sunao when she's sick or has to take a test. However, that replica ends up falling in love and tries to distinguish herself from Sunao despite them being the same person, I think. Like, I wonder how the replica even came to be and how the two resolve themselves within Sunao. And surely the guy the replica has a crush on finds out, right? I actually really like this plot. So earlier this month, Yen Press sent a single GL volume, and it's When the Villainess Seduces the Main Heroine by Kasai Fuji. It is noted to have explicit content, so the Crown Prince breaks off his engagement to Akuya, who turns around and gets with Sei, a commoner. But plot twist, Sei is the girl that the Crown Prince dumped Akuya for. So these two women get together while the prince is pushed to the side, which is kind of funny, and I'm totally here for it. And then Aloha Comics were very kind as well to reach out and ask if I would be interested in checking out some of the other Chinese manhwa titles they printed besides Link Click. As I mentioned in a previous video, I only backed Link Click on their Kickstarter, which I showed this volume 1 already. But they sent Day Off and Nirvana in Fire, both hardcovers with a dust jacket, and both were ones I was interested in eventually reading as well. So Day Off is by Daily Greens and is an office BL romance between a resolute but affectionate boss and his cute and lighthearted subordinate. I read this volume, and each episode or chapter is really short, like sometimes just 2 to 3 pages or maybe 7 pages, but range from silly to warm and fuzzy to slightly intimate. It's really just occurrences in their daily lives as a new couple of a few months, like interactions at work or at home. Xiaofei and his mom are super sweet, and she totally dotes on her son and Dongyun. And then Dongyun's half older brother appears as well, who is strict but lenient at the same time because he just cares about Dongyun. It's all good vibes, like 99.5% of the volume. So if you're looking for a quick comfort read, Day Off is it. Next is Nirvana in Fire by Hai Yan and Chen Si. I read this, and I'm so glad I had the character tree card that describes the relationships between majority of the characters that are in this first volume. I'm not as familiar with Chinese names, and combine that with some of the titles that those characters have, it takes a bit to get used to, especially in a historical setting. It actually took me an hour and a half to read this volume because I wanted to make sure I knew who was talking and that I understood what was happening. So it follows Mei Changsu, who returns to the capital under a different name and stays with these two brothers who I believe know his real name but agree to address him as Su Jia and acknowledge that he's there to recuperate his health. It seems he has a past that's intertwined with the people in the capital. I mean, if you look at this character tree, there's all these relationships, but for some reason, they don't recognize him when they see him. So I'm not sure what's going on there, especially with Mu Nihuang, considering it says they were betrothed. And part of this volume surrounds a martial arts tournament for her hand in marriage. Unless this character tree is a spoiler? Anyways, I'm not sure how Mei Changsu's ultimate goal of clearing the names of wrongly accused warriors plays into this whole thing, but this was very much an introductory volume of seeing all the characters and a little bit of the turmoil between them. This next volume is also by Aloha Comics, but I ordered this myself through Amazon, and it's Link Click Volume 2, another stunning print with a holographic jacket. This continues the comic adaptation of episodes 4, 5, and 6 of the Donghua. I actually haven't read the first volume yet, but I already know the contents of these first volumes since I've watched all of the Link Click episodes so far. I'll eventually read it in this format, but I had to collect these because it's such a well-printed series. I can't wait for the next installment of episodes, and I wonder if Aloha Comics will continue printing this Donghua adaptation into season 2 as well. Either way, I'm happy to have these and support this small publisher. Alright, continuing on with the rest of the books I had pre-ordered myself, which you can take all of these volumes I'm going to talk about as a recommendation from me. Because I've greatly reduced what I pre-ordered down to the series I absolutely enjoy, my pickups are even more focused on series that I super love. I got the next volume of the Korean manhwa A Business Proposal Volume 6. I haven't been reading these physical copies as I get them because I've actually read this series several times in the past, so I'm thinking that I will do a read-through of it when it's fully printed. But it's one of my early favorite male-female workplace comedy romances. Next is Bungo Stray Dogs Volume 24 of the main manga series, and then Volume 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs Dazai Chuya Age 15. I haven't read these yet, but I am an enjoyer of this series, and I know Volume 23 left off on quite the cliffhanger. I had also enjoyed Volume 1 of Dazai and Chuya's Age 15 spinoff too. I loved seeing them when they were younger and basically seeing their origin story. I need to be in a mood to get back into a long-running series, so I will eventually read these. This volume made me cry, even though it was a reread for me, but here is Given Volume 9, the final volume. Although I hope it's not the actual final volume, because we need to see the time skip chapters printed too, please. I beg. We also need the recent movies that released this year in Japan available worldwide. I really want to hear the music and the singing so that I can cry all over again, but I love Given. Everyone knows this by now. Next is another series I am absolutely loving, and it's Gazing at the Star Next Door Volume 3. I loved it so much that I couldn't stop at 3 and read into Volume 5. Seriously, with the way Volume 3 ended, it was actual pain to pause there. I really love the relationship between Chiaki and Subaru, and I know this is a high school romance, but the way Subaru's rise to stardom and how his acting career affects their friendship is portrayed so well, but is still heart-wrenching at times. The art is also very stunning. I literally cannot get enough of this series. Please go read it if you haven't already. It actually makes me want to read Ran the Peerless Beauty, which is also by the same mangaka Amitsu. Another standout volume is My Girlfriend's Child, Volume 5. Absolutely love this volume yet again. Seeing Sachi confront all the things that come her way makes me root for her so much. Despite her and Takara being teenagers and deciding to have their baby, they initially explore so many options together based on what they think is best, and then continue to communicate even if they stumble at times. The people around them show varying degrees of support, which adds to the drama of this story, but ultimately, seeing how their lives continue to change has been an impactful read so far and something I thoroughly recommend. Next is Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen, Volume 4. I've talked about Witch Hat in length in my previous manga video. This next installment is another feel-good read of the 4 girls with their 2 dads as they cook together. The recipes are always really neat, and it's fun seeing how the magical ingredients translate to our real-world ingredients. I'm not too into pure slice of life series like this, but Witch Hat has me in a chokehold, so I will read anything involving these characters and the magical world they live in. I feel like I need to make a dedicated video for Witch Hat or something. I originally thought I wouldn't pick up this series, but I figured I'd give it a try. So this BL at 25 o'clock in Akasaka Volume 1 by Hiroku Natsuno. Is that how you say this title? 25 o'clock? Anyways, I recently read this and it follows 2 actors, Asami, who's fairly popular already, while Yuki isn't, until he lands a role in a TV drama with Asami. This is a friends with benefits to lovers trope, and I personally feel like it had a rocky start because it was repetitive, although ultimately I ended up not minding it that much. They come to a friends with benefits agreement in order for Yuki to get a better feel for his role. They're not on the same page most of the time until they finally confront each other about their feelings. But the reason why I want to continue reading this is because I believe it continues on where the show they star in goes into another season or into a movie, whichever one it is. And I want to see the drama that comes with it. Next is How I Met My Soulmate, Volume 4. This is the volume I left off on when I was reading it digitally, so the next volume will be new content for me. This series isn't really doing anything groundbreaking in terms of a romance story, but the reason why I like it is because it involves adults, namely university students. So this gets past the tamer high school romances. Not to say that these adults don't have similar misunderstandings, because the series does have those, but I don't know, they deal with it in a nice pace. And I also really like the chemistry and personalities of the characters, so that's a plus. Then I got My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 999, volume 2. I've read this series a couple times already up to chapter 107, but I did reread this volume when I got it. It's still in the early stages of Akane getting to know everyone in the group, but it's nice to see them come together and get to know one another. I will say that something that's always kind of bugged me is that in the beginning, it's always pointed out that Yamada is handsome. Like always. And I get it. But my eyes kind of just glaze over when I read line after line of how someone is handsome. Obviously, it doesn't bug me enough to not love this series because I clearly love it since I've reread it several times. But yeah, I just wanted to share that in case anyone might be feeling the same way. Next is Turns Out My Online Friend is My Real Life Boss, Volume 2. This was new content for me since Volume 1 was a reread when I got that physical copy. Honestly, this series should be renamed Misunderstandings, the Manga. The entire foundation of this series starts from a misunderstanding and it continues on even after Hashimoto and Shirase have gotten together. Not that it causes annoying drama between the main couple, because they're actually very cute together, but dang, so many assumptions spiral out of control with one of their friends and their brother. But I still enjoy this couple's relationship and how there's a cute gaming aspect to this series as well, just like with Yamada-kun. I was highly anticipating this Apothecary Diaries Volume 12 release because everyone, literally everyone who read ahead kept sending frog emojis and saying, if you know, you know. So when I started reading the volume, I was like, okay, I wonder when it'll come up. And yeah, when it came up, it was obvious. Pun intended. I enjoyed the heck out of this volume. I love Mamao's reactions to the things that Jinshi does and vice versa. Still very much enjoying the series and curious to see what's next for them and maybe finding out when we can expect season 2 of the anime. Next is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun Volume 20. I debated whether I should have cancelled getting this volume. Originally, I thought, no, I'm not going to get the next toilet stall box set because maybe it'd be the same exact box as the first one, which I'm pretty sure I saw the pre-order listing use the same image for a while, and that's why I decided, no, I don't need it. But then Yen Press announced a second box set, and it's in a blue color and is Yashiro themed. But here I am with this single volume 20. I could have saved myself from having to unhaul one less volume, but oh well. I'm not planning on pre-ordering the box set unless it dips in price by a lot. Otherwise, I will continue to keep my singles. Anyways, still loving this series and enjoyed reading this volume. I've talked a lot about Toilet Bound Hanako-kun in previous videos. I love the characters and love the story, especially with how it has a good mix of dark and lighthearted moments plus angsty bits. The plot keeps thickening, and I honestly wonder where it'll ultimately head and if there will be some heavy angst in the future. Next is Tsubaki-chou Lonely Planet Volume 8, another series I really enjoyed when I first read through all the volumes, but I have not been reading as the physical volumes come out. I'll eventually do a reread, but I'm just loving getting these copies on my shelves and looking forward to getting back into this low-key comfort romance story. Then I have Yakuza Fiancé Volume 8. Okay, not gonna lie, I probably need to reread a volume or so before this one because I'm not sure I fully grasp what's going on with this tension or complications between the Yakuza gangs. Like, there was a conversation in here between Yoshino and Shoma that totally went over my head. Although it could be a simple power struggle. But this volume in particular does get into Kirishima's past, which is so wild and unhinged, but adds more to why he is the way that he is. I'm still enjoying this read and excited that it's getting an anime. And lastly, I have Yona of the Dawn Volume 42. This has got to be one of my top favorite covers and back covers. This illustration is stunning, and I still have the postcards of this up on my Yona shelf. But this volume in particular is when it starts to give me heartache again. You all already know how much I love J-Ha, so yeah. I'm caught up to the latest chapters, so I'm beyond what happens in here, but just going through it again gave me goosebumps. I originally was going to do a Yona reread at the end of last year, but decided not to and to just keep up with the latest chapters and do a reread later, since I have so many other series to read. But the series is closing in on the end with this final arc, which makes me sad, but I'm also excited to see how this epic story wraps up. So that's everything I've gotten in the last couple months. Thanks so much again to Yen Press and Aloha Comics for sending books for me to read and review. Let me know if you've been reading any of these series I talked about and your thoughts on them. I'll see you in my next video. Take care!